how does one of the biggest drug dealers of all time then smuggle one of the biggest footballers of all time into his prison? How does that operate? Listen, Maradona was that little gangster himself. Like when he went to Napoli and you see footage of him for Barcelona, kneeing people in the face, like he was proper a man you probably wouldn't want to fuck with. But how he would have probably enjoyed that. Pablo Escobar would have been at like they just sort of not similar, but they had that personality. Like how does it happen though? How does one of the biggest footballers end up involved with one of the biggest drug dealers?
Well, I think at the time, Diego Maradona was back in Argentina. He had been banned from playing football at all anywhere in the world for 15 months, I think. He tested positive for cocaine while he was at Napoli. And so he'd gone back to Argentina and he was in Buenos Aires. And then while he was in Buenos Aires, he was arrested in an apartment with cocaine, in possession of cocaine. And he had this legal case going on in Argentina, and he was banned from playing football. And he was really kind of one of his lowest ebbs. He had a few low ebbs, but he was definitely in a dark place. He probably financially was not in the best shape then, and he wasn't allowed to play football, and he was kind of stuck in Argentina. And I think it was at that point that a representative of Pablo's approached him with an offer to play a highly lucrative exhibition match. And that's something that's very, very common in continental and especially in South American football, that professional footballers at a very young age get used to the idea that you have to play in these extra matches, these exhibition games, to raise money for your club that might help pay your contract, for example. So Maradona had played absolutely tons of sort of meaningless friendlies in order to generate revenue for his club so that they could actually afford his contract. So it's something he was very used to, getting paid cash for playing in a game. And I think he got offered to play in a football match in Colombia. He was banned from playing organized matches anywhere. He was at a low ebb. He probably needed the money. So I think, like a lot of people around Pablo, probably didn't ask too many questions. And as he told it years later, Maradona, he told the story a little bit in the press. I think he was kind of flown out to Colombia, and he was taken to this location, and lo and behold, it was La Catedral prison where Pablo had installed himself. And he was kind of smuggled in there, and he played a match with Pablo. I think he met Pablo first, and it's quite an interesting insight when I talked about how he saw himself, I think, as a footballer and loved the idea that he was a bit of a player. And Maradona talks about how Pablo really went on at great length about how they were kindred spirits, and they had very similar upbringings, and to some extent they did have quite similar upbringings in kind of poor parts of their home countries in South America. But he clearly felt, that Diego Maradona and he were kind of almost like two kindred spirits, two souls. And I think they were very similar height, quite a similar build. I think Pablo kind of modeled his game a little bit on Maradona's game. I think he liked to play kind of inside right, like right wing, cutting in on his left foot, tried to be a little bit skillful, a little bit tricksy. And so, yeah, Maradona was the biggest and best footballing superstar in the world. I think Pablo just thought, I want to play football with him. So he got him over there. He got him into the prison. They played a game of football. They gave Maradona a briefcase full of cash and invited him to stay on and party with them. And he partied with them. He said a parade of the most beautiful women he'd ever seen in his life kind of appeared out as if by magic in this prison. And there was just, drink and drugs and girls. And he partied all night with Pablo, and then he was kind of escorted out and flown back. So yeah, I think, again, I don't think you go to those lengths if you don't love football in some weird twisted way. And kind of, like I say, I think he felt he could have been a footballer. He liked to rub shoulders with them,
But if he's playing football, you ain't tackling him. So he's scoring non-stop, thinking he's fucking Maradona. Nobody's tackling him.
No, they used to, every now and again, he might get a little tackle off one of the players whose, salary he was paying at Atlético Nacional or Deportivo Independiente Medellin, when he'd get these games together with the players of his clubs. And he'd make sure they knew if they even put one or two tackles on him, like, what are you doing? I think everyone around them would be going, what are you doing? Don't tackle El Jefe, Don Pablo, go easy on him. And I think, I think his team won more often than not. And I think, if there was a penalty, he'd normally take it. And if someone like Rene Higuita was in goal, he'd normally dive the wrong way. And lo and behold, it would go in. I think he was an average footballer at best. But like so much in his life, a lot of what happened to him and around him was driven by fear. Fear was what motivated people to be loyal to him, to proclaim their love for him, to let him win, to go easy on him. And it's something I sympathize greatly with the footballers of this era is, how do you say no? How do you say no to Pablo Escobar? It's a very difficult thing to do, to say no to someone who has the money, the resources to kill you, kidnap your family, blow up an airplane, do whatever he wants.